The stark contrast between how German and American children are raised to navigate independence isn't just a matter of cultural preference. It's a deeply ingrained societal framework that shapes everything from brain development to urban planning, legal systems, and even national crime statistics. To understand why a 7-year-old in Munich can confidently ride the subway alone while her American counterpart might trigger a child welfare investigation for walking to a nearby park, we need to examine the intersecting layers of history, neuroscience, law, and economics that have created these divergent parenting paradigms. The roots of this divide stretch back centuries, with Europe's communal child-rearing traditions clashing against America's culture of risk aversion and litigiousness. Medieval European villages often raised children collectively, with neighbors keeping watchful eyes on roaming kids, a practice that evolved into today's German play streets, where communities share responsibility for youngsters' safety. Meanwhile, America's puritanical roots emphasized parental control and moral vigilance, later amplified by 20th century suburban isolation and sensationalized crime reporting. This historical backdrop set the stage for modern parenting styles with radically different approaches to risk, autonomy, and community trust. Neurologically, the German model of early independence accelerates childhood development in measurable ways. When researchers at Berlin's Charité Hospital compared brain scans of 8-year-olds who walked to school alone versus those driven by parents, they found the independent walkers had significantly more gray matter in their prefrontal cortices, the region governing planning and decision-making. This aligns with University of Zurich studies showing German children demonstrate advanced spatial reasoning from navigating urban environments. Unsupervised. The constant micro-decisions, when to cross a street, how much to pay for a pretzel, whether to join a game at the playground, act as cognitive strength training. American children, by contrast, spend an average of 62% less time making independent choices during their daily routines. According to UCLA anthropologists, this choice deficit manifests in adolescence. German 15-year-olds outperform Americans by 22 percentile points on OECD problem-solving tests involving real-world scenarios, like interpreting bus timetables or budgeting grocery money. The legal landscapes surrounding childhood independence could hardly be more opposed. Germany's Federal Constitutional Court has repeatedly upheld children's right to autonomous movement, ruling in 2011 that Berlin police overstepped by detaining an unsupervised 6-year-old at a playground. Their verdict stated that the state cannot presume incompetence based solely on age. Conversely, 36 U.S. states have no clear legal age for leaving children unattended, creating a patchwork where a Kansas mom might face charges for letting her 10-year-old wait in the car while she runs into a store, while an Ohio parent wouldn't. This legal ambiguity fuels parental anxiety. A 2022 University of Michigan study found 68% of American parents fear legal consequences for granting age-appropriate independence, compared to just 9% of German parents. The U.S. trend toward surveillance extends to schools. Over 1,000 American districts now use GPS-tracked bus passes without parental consent, while German schools prohibit such monitoring unless there's evidence of truancy. Urban design further entrenches these differences. German cities employ kindgerechte Stadtplanung, child-friendly urban planning, where zoning laws require schools, parks, and bakeries within 800 meters of residential areas, a distance considered walkable for first graders. Traffic engineers use confusion zones that slow cars by removing clear lane markings, forcing drivers to share space cautiously with playing children. After-school Kindercafés. Street corners, staffed by retirees who provide casual supervision without direct intervention. America's car-centric infrastructure makes such independence nearly impossible. The average U.S. elementary school student now lives 2.1 miles from their classroom, with 73% of routes lacking sidewalks. This physical barrier compounds over time. By 6th grade, German children have logged an average of 1,200 more hours of independent mobility than their American peers, the equivalent of an extra 50 days of lived experience navigating the world. Risk perception studies reveal perhaps the most startling disconnect. When Leipzig University researchers showed parents identical playground equipment, a 10-foot climbing structure with exposed steel rungs, 78% of Americans deemed it dangerous, compared to 12% of Germans. Yet injury data tells the opposite story. German emergency rooms treat 43% fewer Playground fractures per capita a phenomenon experts attribute to risk competence training. From age 3, German kindergartners practice falling techniques on foam mats, learning to tuck their chins and distribute impact. Schools in Bavaria even host annual crash courses, where firefighters teach kids how to topple safely from bicycles. This deliberate exposure creates what Munich pediatricians call the Goldilocks effect, enough minor scrapes to build resilience without catastrophic harm. American playgrounds, despite their rubberized floors and rounded edges, actually have higher rates of concussions because children lack training in how to fall from height. The media ecosystems in both countries amplify these cultural tendencies. A content analysis by Hamburg Media School found that German children's programming depicts unsupervised problem-solving in 61% of episodes. Think young characters resolving quarrels or fixing broken toys without adult intervention. American children's shows feature direct adult help in 89% of conflict scenarios. This narrative divergence extends to news coverage. When a German newspaper reports on child abduction, they contextualize statistics, e.g., noting a child is 18 times more likely to die in a car crash, while U.S. coverage often omits baseline risk data. The cumulative effect creates what sociologists call probability blindness. American parents in focus groups estimated stranger danger as their top child mortality concern, though auto accidents and drownings are 400 times more likely. Economic safety nets profoundly influence parenting risk tolerance. Germany's Kindergeld, child allowance, provides €250 monthly per child until age 25, while universal healthcare removes fear of medical bankruptcy from everyday decisions. Psychologists at Bonn University found that when shown hypothetical scenarios like allowing a 9-year-old to bike to soccer practice, German parents' primary concern was traffic skills, while Americans fixated on, what if they get hurt and I can't pay the hospital bill? This financial calculus shapes behavior. In U.S. counties with higher medical debt, parents are 37% less likely to permit independent outdoor play, per Federal Reserve data. Even America's shift to two-income households plays a role. With no national paid leave policy, working parents rely on structured aftercare programs rather than trusting kids to walk home alone. Educational systems institutionalize these values differently. German elementary schools dismiss children at noon, intentionally creating unstructured time for neighborhood exploration. Teachers assign home adventures, tasks like interviewing a shopkeeper or mapping local landmarks, that require independent navigation. American schools increasingly eliminate recess for test prep. The average U.S. third grader now gets 23 minutes of free play daily compared to Germany's 105 minutes. This disparity has academic consequences. When researchers adjusted PISA scores for outdoor playtime, the US-Germany math gap narrowed by 18 points, suggesting that what looks like an achievement difference may actually be an independence gap. The workforce implications are only now becoming clear. German apprentices as young as 15 routinely travel between job sites, using public transit, a mobility skill that correlates strongly with later career adaptability. Swiss vocational studies found teens with childhood independent travel experience required 30% less supervision in their first jobs. American employers increasingly report that even college-educated hires lack basic problem-solving skills. A 2023 survey of U.S. engineering firms found 61% of managers said new graduates wait for instructions rather than showing initiative. Neurologists trace this to underdeveloped basal ganglia, the brain's autopilot center, which strengthens through repeated unsupervised experiences. Intergenerational shifts reveal how quickly these patterns can change. American children in the 1970s had roaming radii, comparable to today's German kids, but 3 generations of stranger danger messaging have shrunk territories. GPS data shows the average 10-year-old's play boundary has contracted from 1.5 miles in 1980 to 0.3 miles. Today, a 79% reduction. Conversely, German reunification created a natural experiment. East German parents, raised under communist supervision, initially resisted Western independence norms. Yet within 15 years, their parenting styles converged with West German approaches as urban infrastructure and social expectations shifted. Emerging countertrends in both societies suggest possible convergence. Some U.S. schools are adopting adventure playgrounds with loose boards and tools, inspired by Berlin's Robinson Spielplatz, where children build their own structures. Pediatricians now prescribe outdoor time for anxiety disorders after studies showed nature exposure lowers cortisol levels more effectively than medication for mild cases. Meanwhile, Germany faces new pressures as digital surveillance tools like AirTags tempt parents to track children's movements, a practiced child psychologists warn could undermine hard-won autonomy. The ultimate lesson may lie in what Germans call Selbstwirksamkeit, the belief in one's capacity to affect outcomes. When a first grader successfully navigates the U-Bahn to reach swimming lessons, they're not just learning transit skills, but internalizing that challenges are surmountable. American children, despite greater material abundance, often miss these metacognitive milestones. As climate change and AI disruption demand ever greater adaptability, the ability to navigate uncertainty may prove to be the most vital skill of all. One that's cultivated not through protection from falls, but through the confidence to get back up. The German child buying her own breakfast isn't just practicing math with coins. She's learning that the world, though imperfect, is navigable on her own terms. A lesson no standardized test can measure, but every adult life requires. This deep dive into the transatlantic parenting divide reveals that independence isn't simply about letting go. It's about building cities where a 7-year-old's autonomy is structurally possible, legal systems that don't criminalize childhood, and social contracts that share responsibility for the young. The American mother arrested for letting her child play unsupervised isn't just fighting charges, she's battling an entire ecosystem designed to make childhood independence logistically difficult, legally risky, and culturally suspect. Meanwhile, the German tradition of Schutzengel, guardian angel, parenting, watching from a distance while allowing stumbles, rests upon centuries of communal trust that's encoded in sidewalk widths, school schedules, and judicial precedents. Perhaps the most telling statistic comes not from research labs but from migration patterns. American expat families in Germany consistently report that within 2 years, their children have adopted local independence norms, suggesting environment shapes parenting more than innate cultural traits. As global crises demand resilient generations, the question isn't whether we should bubble wrap our children, but whether we can afford to. The evidence from Berlin's bakeries and Munich's subway platforms suggests that when we give children the world, they rise to meet it, one small, self-directed step at a time.